Afghanistan, tried to build their walls around us, nail us to the ground.
Thanks, Brian. It is a true honor to welcome our next guest in the studio. Steve Hackett was the lead guitarist of the legendary band Genesis from 71 to 77.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, and member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And certainly it's a real honor to meet just a piece of rock history here.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Bob. Nice introduction.
How impressed are you that we have all the albums?
Oh, very good.
Not DVD,
Very good.
not CDs.
Very good.
The
The old albums, full size.
Yeah, we got to thank actually Brian Salvatore. He's an avid collector behind camera one. And thank you for signing those, and thank you for being here. You got a big show in Oakville tonight and tomorrow night.
That's right, the Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, and I know you've been there before.
Yeah, looking forward to it again. Always a pleasure to come here.
Yeah, the tour is called Acolyte to Wolflight, so that spans your solo career.
Yeah.
Like 26 albums or something.
Oh, it was masses, yeah.
Something like that. And the Genesis material with Genesis Revisited.
That's right, yeah.
A lot of ground to cover, and we got a lot of ground to cover while you're sitting here. I want to start to your transatlantic crossing as a you're 6 or 7 years old.
7 years old in 1957.
And the family immigrated to Canada.
That's right, yeah. Absolutely wonderful for me as a child. I hadn't been on an ocean liner, so it took 5 days to come across from Dover to Quebec, and then Canadian Pacific Railway, right across Canada. And for me,
with the observation car, and you can still take that through the Rockies.
Oh, yeah,
that was your introduction.
I'm really thrilled that that's still there, because I would recommend anyone who hasn't done it just to take all that in, from the sites, the various towns, and just the names of places. It was just so heady for me, Moose Jaw.
And you loved your year here.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. I went to school here, and I was all set. I spoke Canadian by then.
You did, eh?
I just loved it as a kid, and I hated going back. My mother became terribly homesick, and she needed to return. So my brother and I returned with her. My father spent another year paying off the debts, working here in Canada, both in Vancouver, and then he moved up to Prince George, digging out trains and doing anything he could to make that money back.
But when he came home, this should be noted, being that you're inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, your first guitar Dad brought home from Canada.
Oh yeah. That was his guitar, and he used to sit down and play cowboy tunes on it and whistle and all that stuff. And it wasn't till I was 12 I was big enough to get my arms around it. It's a big country guitar, sort of thing that Elvis might have used, K, F cello whole thing. And so I eventually got my arms around it when I was 12, and then I started to get really serious once I was 14 doing chords. And again, that was Dad showing me that, just as he showed me harmonica as a 2-year-old. So. And
since then, you've influenced the likes of Eddie Van Halen to Brian May from Queen, and it's a who's who of rock guitarists that credit you as inspiration.
Well, it's nice that there's all of that, but as you say, Dad was the first musical inspiration right in the house. So without that, history would have taken a different turn for me.
Well, it's been quite the musical legacy. We'll talk about the Genesis years, and of course there's GTR as well, but Wolflight, of course, is the latest album. Congratulations on that success. Has been charting very well around the world. But the entire body of your work and all these solo albums, for this show, how do you come up with a set list to please everybody?
Well, it's very difficult. There are a whole ton of solo things, and there's a ton of Genesis albums. So we divided it up into 2 sets. So we do the solo stuff first of all, then we take a 15-20-minute break, then we come back with the Genesis set. So we are virtually 2 bands in one with that. And I like to honor the past, which is the Genesis stuff, particularly the Peter Gabriel years,
which you
were 71, 75.
A critical part of.
I was lucky to be a part of that. I think it was a great time in music. I saw the band's fortunes change from playing to 3 men and a dog to doing 20,000 people a night, and it was extraordinary. Yeah.
When was the moment that, wow, you answered an ad in Melody Maker, the magazine. At what point, wow, I'm in a world famous band? What was that moment?
Well, I think, you know, I'd been advertising myself for years, so it was Pete who phoned me up, and he said, "Have you heard of us, Genesis?" And I thought, yeah, I think I've heard of these guys. So yeah, I'd heard of them. They had a recording contract, yeah, and they did interesting music. So you know, it was a very good school to be part of. You know, we influenced each other.
Yeah.
We worked hard.
But it was a band on the cusp, and obviously
Yeah.
of note. But after you joined, that's when, well, Selling England by the Pound right in front of me. There was
Yeah.
a moment in New York City you were on tour.
That's right, yeah.
Listening to the radio.
Yeah.
And there was a guy named John Lennon who was
Yeah.
going on about this album.
Well, the lovely thing was, although we were in New York City, we really couldn't get a date between New York City and LA. That's my memory of it. And you know, we had some sold out dates in LA, but nowhere else would take us. You know, the Midwest was completely lost to us. But Lennon said we were one of the bands that he was listening to. Of course, these days you tweet that and have it out on social media immediately. You know,
it goes viral.
But it goes viral. But in those days, smoke signals travel slowly.
Yeah.
So
I saw that tour actually. 1973.
Did you really?
Yeah, Massey Hall.
Massey
Toronto.
Hall, extraordinary. Yeah, we did that a few times. I think the first time we supported Lou Reed, and people were fighting in the audience. You know, people who wanted to hear Genesis, and people who wanted to see Lou Reed, and it was an extraordinary mismatch. But I liked his stuff, but I'm not sure his followers were ready for you know, these Brits.
Yeah. What was your favorite album in?
Well, funnily enough, the one that Lennon got on
Selling
board with,
England by
which
the
was
Pound.
Selling England by the Pound,
Yeah.
which I always loved that album. But all of them, I think, have got something to offer. I suppose I would say that, wouldn't I? But by being honest, you know. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your best memory and worst memory with the band?
Oh my God. Revealing. Oh, I think. Oh God, you're really putting me on the spot. The first time we played Madison Square Garden, I think was great. You know, from the opening note, everyone was up on their feet, which it felt like we've arrived. This is
That
good.
was the moment, yeah.
Loved doing that. Loved doing Maple Leaf Gardens, all that.
Oh, you
sort
remember
of
that
thing.
too, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Worst memory was we were playing Glasgow at a place called Green's Playhouse, and we were about to do the show, and the roadies said, "You can't go on stage. All the equipment is live. You're going to get electrocuted." And I thought, how can this be? What's going on?
Yeah.
You know.
What a way to go.
What a way to go. We came back, I think, 1 or 2 weeks later, and we played it again. And I thought they're going to kill us because, you know, it's Glasgow. And but actually, they all stood up once again. So worst memory and you know, success and failure.
Yeah, and after all that success, why did you leave the band? Where were you at that time?
Well, I started doing solo albums, and
You were actually a first.
I was first to do a solo album, and it was considered divisive by some guys in the band. They didn't want me to do that, and at the same time, no guarantee of getting my songs done by the band. So, you know, it comes down to I joined a band that was a democracy, and by the time Pete left, you know, people were fighting for supremacy. And, so I loved the music, detested the politics, still friends with all the guys.
You actually, we've got a picture that we'll share when you recently reunited for a BBC documentary.
Right.
Some of its parts. Although many fans were upset that it really didn't acknowledge the true history of Genesis.
Right.
Specifically with your contributions in solo material, and it tended to reflect on the latter half when there were 3.
Yeah.
How disappointing was that for you?
I think a missed opportunity.
Did it really take you off?
In many ways, yeah. I mean, I wasn't happy with it, but I gave it. You know, it's like people say, well, why didn't you contribute more? Well, you know, I was interviewed for 2 hours on my own, and then 2 hours with the guys, and so somewhere in the editing, you know, it's. But hey, you know, we're here today. We're still friends. We still all talk. You know, that's.
But
the thing.
the chances of a reunion, many fans would like to see it. Although there's many complications there, isn't there? Because Genesis, in many ways, is 2 different bands or 2 different eras. So how do you reflect it in a reunion?
Yeah,
or put it together.
Many different incarnations, and in my mind, I separate it into 2 eras. Really, there's the albums era, and there's the singles era.
Right.
And I think that the ethos was very different. A very different music business. You know, once MTV was was king at that time. There was an orientation towards singles. The pressure was on all acts to become, to have. If you didn't have your latest hit single, you were unlikely to have your contract renewed the following year, which is where GTR came in.
Well, on GTR you had a couple of hit singles with that, and actually there's an anniversary coming up on.
That's right. Yeah.
You're planning on doing anything with that? Will that material be in tonight's show tomorrow?
Not currently, but the real anniversary will be 30 years. It'll be next year. So chances are I'll do something from GTR next year.
With of course yes guitarist Steve Howe, and our condolences by the way, because you also did an album with Chris Squire, who we lost this year.
The late great Chris Squire, who's a tremendous player, writer, band leader, and we became pals, and we did a number of things together. We did an album together called Squacket. So,
yes. Yeah. Well, it's such an incredible body of work. I wish we had all day to talk about it.
Well, thank you. I didn't expect to be so thorough.
Well, it's I mean, it's a big deal. You're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, thank you.
And that big deal is in Oakville tonight for two shows, tonight and tomorrow night. And I know you're coming back
in the spring.
In the spring. So
yes.
open door invite on Morning Live. Steve
fantastic.
Hackett, thank you.
Thank you.